Okay, today we're going to go through Chapter 3 in the Adobe After Effects CS6 Classroom in a Book. I know it's outdated, but there's not much you can learn from the new book that you can't learn in this book. Probably shouldn't say that. Anyway, learn however you want to. You can learn from me, and then you'll be as amazing as me. Just kidding. All right. So this chapter focuses on text. We have a few things that we need to do. I am going to start by opening the lesson 3 end project file. The finished one is where we put ours. So lesson 3, end. And I'm just going to take a look at this real quick and see what we need to recreate. Okay, we have all this stuff here. Got a little animation of a car that comes whipping through. All sorts of fun stuff. So let's learn how to do all that, shall we? All right, so I'm going to... Do you guys know what the key command for starting a new project is?
That's the,
It's Alt Command N. Okay. Command Alt N. I'm not going to save this because I don't need to. But so you guys notice that After Effects just reset. It started a new project. I didn't have to save it or anything. Saving, first of all, is always a really good practice. So I'm going to call this Lesson 3 Scott.
let's see, how do we got this one again?
And the book provides you with a nice finished project folder, and you can save it in there inside Lesson 3. You okay, Nathan?
I'm having a hard time with the command Alt-N thing.
Oh, well, you can go up to the File menu and click New, and then go to New Project. Same thing.
So don't save though.
No, you don't have to save that project. I just wanted to show you what we were going to make, sort of.
Let's see. Let's see. How do you find it?
All right, so I'm going to save this in the Lesson 3 folder, finished project. Now, key command for import. Okay, Command I. We need to get some assets in here. So, go to my recent folder, Lesson 3. Inside Assets, I have a background movie, a Swift file, some credits, and a PSD, and a car Illustrator file. I'm going to want all of them, so I'm going to go ahead and just click Open.
Let's see. What if there's something unexpectedly keeps showing up?
Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got here. Inside this Assets folder, if I twirl this down, I've got my background, MOV, my car, AI, my compass, SWF, and my credits, PSD. Let's start by making a new composition. I think it's safe to probably base the composition on this background movie.mov because then we'll have the same frame size and frame rate as that video, right? That's always a safe idea. Do you guys remember how to do that? So because we don't have anything in the timeline yet, we don't have any compositions, if we drag that down there, it'll create a new composition with the same name as the movie file that we just put in there. So I'm going to click on the composition icon in the project panel, drag it to the left, and let go, and that puts it outside my assets folder.
But what if the screen's bigger than needed?
So there's a couple of things that might happen right now. If you're viewing a video that looks a little bit Oh, never mind. This is square pixels. Yeah, it is square pixels. So if you go back to the stuff we learned in the Premiere class, you can interpret footage in After Effects similar to the way you interpreted it in Premiere. If you right-click on it and go to Interpret Footage, we can interpret the frame rate of the file to play it slower or faster. We can also interpret it with pixel aspect ratio.
That's it.
720 by 480 is actually non-square pixels, but this is 720 by 486, so we're okay. We're just going to leave it like this.
That's it. Where's the interpret one on here?
Now, if you are dealing with video that's non-square pixels, this image might look a little stretched, either wide or it might look skinny. In order to preview it the way in the size that you want to see it, if you click on this little icon, the toggle pixel aspect ratio correction, it will correct the way it's presented. It'll show it to you the way it is meant to be viewed. Because with non-square pixels, you either get a skinny image or a really wide image, and the aspect ratio correction will take care of that. Okay, so right now, if I go down to my timeline and scrub, I've just got this piece of video that's playing in the background, right? So let's start by adding some text. The key command for activating your type tool is Command T, because remember what the key command T brings up? What does that bring up? The opacity, yeah, the transparency of a selected layer. So if you hit Command T, that'll bring up your type tool. Then you can click anywhere on the canvas in your composition panel, and you can type in text.
I don't get this. How is it you're able to do Command T like that and yet I'm not?
Okay, so let's type some. We just typed a road trip. I deleted that. I'm going to show you another way to type text in. So if you single click in your composition panel, you start typing, it will create text based on the point that you clicked on. You can also do a text box. So if I want to start typing in text and have it wrap inside a space, then you just drag that box over and you can start typing the text in there. Very similar to Photoshop in that way. Now with the text armed, the type tool and the text selectable and typable, that's when you can change the size of the box that the text is going to show up in. Okay? If I don't have the type activated, and the way you deactivate the type from editing is you hit the soft return key. That's the return key that's down by your number pad. If you're on your MacBook Pro, then it's function enter, and that's your soft return. So if you hit enter, then that turns it back into a layer, and now I'm scaling it rather than changing the size of the text box. So at any time you can double click on it and you can select your text or highlight your text and edit it from there. Alright. I want to delete this, and then once again I'm going to hit Command T, and I'm going to click somewhere near the center of the screen, and I'm going to type in road trip. Soft return will deselect the text, so then I can hit V and grab my selection tool again, start moving it around. Now in your paragraph panel, mine's already open down here. If you don't have your paragraph panel open, go up to the window menu and select paragraph, and it'll activate it somewhere over here. I'm going to center this type up so that it centers the type up on this anchor point. Then if I go over to my character panel, which is right here, same thing, go to window and then select character if you don't have your character panel that you can see it. We can change this to something else. I'm just going to leave it as Helvetica. I'm going to change it to bold, and I'm just going to make the typeface bigger. Question?
So for some reason my text actually ended up in reverse, and then it won't change back.
Okay, if you hit Command T, that'll activate your type tool up here. But if you hit Command T again, it'll activate your vertical type tool. So you may have accidentally typed a vertical text. Yeah.
So wait, how did you change where the anchor point was?
I just changed in the paragraph panel, I changed it to centered text, and that put the anchor point in the center. Question?
What if the window option isn't in the Windows file?
Which window are you looking for?
The window you said should be clicked on.
Well, I was looking for my character panel earlier, and I was looking for my paragraph panel earlier. So those are the two that I was looking for. All right. So with my selection tool, I'm going to drag this road trip text somewhere to the middle. And then what the book wants us to do is we want to put this compass.swf, and we want to place it on the I in place of the dot on the I. Okay. So the way I'm going to do that right now is I'm going to select the compass.swf in my project panel and drag it directly onto my composition panel, roughly where that I is, the dot on the I. Now I don't see it yet. The reason for that is it needs a chance to show up. It's an animation that's previously been done, so I actually need to scrub forward till I can see that. Now with that selected, I can reposition this compass on the I with my mouse manually, or I can, with it highlighted, I can use my arrow keys to just nudge it around. And I think I might want that to be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to hit S for scale, and I'm going to go over and just scrub that to the right till that is covering up that I, the dot on the I. All right, sound good? Now here's a nice little trick. I've made that compass the dot on the I, right? So would it make sense that anywhere the road trip text went, I would want that to stay on the I? Now, what I'm going to do is create a parent-child relationship so that if you make the compass the child of the road trip text, then anywhere I move the road trip text, the compass will follow. Let me show you what I mean. So I can either add keyframes and try to move this around and then try to move this to match, or if I make it a child of road trip, then anytime I move road trip, it's going to move. So watch what happens. The way you do that is down in your timeline panel, you have your compass.swf, then this parent column is right here. The easiest way to draw that relationship is to take this pick whip, it's a little spirally guy, and you draw that to road trip. That says, I want to follow the road trip text, which is a layer. Now watch what happens if I start moving road trip around. No matter where we go, it's going to follow. Same with scale. All right? So it maintains that relationship.
Let's see. How'd you do that again?
So with the way I did that was, once I had the compass set right there on the eye, I needed to go down to the timeline panel and draw this pick whip needs to draw from the compass to the road trip layer. And that will make the compass the child of the road trip, or the road trip the parent of the compass. So now wherever I move road trip, the compass is going to follow. Okay, so let's add some keyframes. First of all, I want this road trip text to come in a cool way. So I'm going to start by using an animation preset. After Effects comes with a handful of presets, and with the road trip text layer selected in the timeline, I need to go up to Animation, Browse Presets. So if I select that, it'll launch Bridge, and it'll navigate Bridge to the Animation Presets folder. So from here, these are the preset animations that come with After Effects. You can make your own presets later on and do a bunch of really cool stuff that way, but we're going to go into the text folder and then go into the blurs folder, and they want us to use Evaporate. So if I select Evaporate, then I can get a little preview of it right here.
Let's see.
If I double click on it, it's going to send that preset back to After Effects on the selected layer, the layer that's selected. So I'm just going to double click. Uh-oh.
Let's see. What was this highlight again?
Well, there was an error, but it worked.
Did you just get an error?
Yeah.
I get it every single time coming out of the presets.
Really? Yeah.
Is that error?
Now, where was that bio again? I'm trying to find it.
If you go to if you go to Bridge,
Yeah.
okay, moving on. So if you take a look at this, if I scrub through, watch what's happening. My letters are on the screen, and if I scrub forward, they disappear.
Yeah,
And then my compass comes on.
yeah.
That's not right.
How was that?
And how come the West doesn't show up if you go forward far enough?
Yeah, I didn't go forward far enough. All right, so here's how to reverse that. It's evaporating out, but I want it to evaporate in, or devaporate, or whatever you want to. Now, when I double clicked on that preset, it put some keyframes on the text layer. And the way to uncover keyframes is U, the letter U. It means uncover, okay? So if I have my road trip selected and I hit U, those little diamonds down there, those are the keyframes. Did you learn about keyframes already? Chapter 1, Chapter 2? You don't need me to explain those to you, right? All right. So here's the trick. This keyframe says I want all the letters on, and this keyframe is saying I want all the letters off. So in order to make the letters go from off to on rather than on to off, I need to change the order that those keyframes are being shown. There's a couple ways to do that. The first way is I take this first keyframe, drag it to the right side of the second keyframe, and that swaps the order. So that's one way. Now, let's pretend I had lots and lots of keyframes.
Let's see.
That would be really tedious, right?
Let's see.
So if I drag a box and select both of those keyframes, and right click on them, go to Keyframe Assistant, and select Time Reverse Keyframes. That's the only place that that exists, okay? If I do Time Reverse Keyframes, it swaps the order that the keyframes are.
Let's see.
So instead of going away, the text comes in.
Let's see. Why if you're having a hard time trying to get the keyframes out?
Next up,
What does yours look like, real Scott? Wait, Scott.
say what?
What does yours look like, real quick?
Mine goes like this. So I'm going to hit spacebar, preview it, and it stopped. Now it's going to crash.
Let's see.
Oh, it didn't crash. Okay. Oh, luckily it didn't crash. Command save. Command S. Command S. All right. Now, let's add some more keyframes. This road trip text is huge right now, right? Let's not make it so big. So,
Let's see.
select the road trip layer in your timeline, hit S, and now here's a tip about adding keyframes, turning on the stopwatch. So I could hit S, go over, click on the stopwatch, that adds my first keyframe for scale, right? Everybody learned that in chapter 1, chapter 2? Well, here's the quicker way to do that. Let's pretend I don't have anything showing, but this is where I want to start my animation. Alt S. That turns on your stopwatch and places a keyframe right there. So anytime I have my playhead somewhere and I'm like, ooh, I want there to be a keyframe right there, you hit Alt S for scale, Alt P for position, Alt R for rotation. Make sense? Alt T for transparency. So now I'm going to go forward. Right now I'm at 2:11. Let's go forward to maybe 5 seconds in. And I'm going to scale this text down to 53%. That looks good. Did you guys learn easing yet? Okay, so do you remember how to ease keyframes? So I'm going to, whoop, I accidentally just drug my layer over.
Oh, well, ours is smaller than yours.
It's fine. I'm just teaching you how to animate. You can make it as big as you want. So I'm going to select both of these keyframes by drawing a box around them. Right click on it. Go to Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. These are some key commands that save lots and lots of time. Alright. So let's talk about easing. You could, in theory, just hit F9 or function F9 if you're on a Mac, and it'll turn your keyframes into hourglasses. What that means is there's an easy ease in and an easy ease out on that animation. What I mean by easy ease in is when you have your playhead and you're going into a keyframe, the easy ease in is how much it slows down before it stops. Then going from left to right, leaving the keyframe, you're going out. So you go into the keyframe, left to right, and then out, left to right, once you're leaving it. So if I leave it from here, that's my ease out. Okay, so right now, the keyframes have ease in and ease out, which is totally fine because it's not doing anything before or after. So we can do that. If you wanted to be really picky, you could do the first keyframe, right click on it, ease this one out, go to the second keyframe, right click on it, ease in, then you have this nice, it's exactly the same though, okay? Alright. We're not going to get into the graph editor yet, but by default, it's a 33%, which is a pretty good looking ease. It's not like a whip ease or anything like that, but we'll get into the graph editor on another chapter. All right, so we just scaled that road trip, right? That looks pretty good. Now I need to do a little work with my titles, my credits. So let's bring the credits layer down in on top. Now here's a little note on dropping things into the timeline. If I drop it into the stacking order, the list right here, and let go, by default that layer is going to be dropped at the beginning of the timeline. And it's going to be dropped in the center. If I drag it into the composition panel, see, I can actually place it, and again, by default, it'll be at the beginning of the timeline. If I drag it down into the timeline here, I can stack it, but wherever I drop it, that's where it's going to start. Okay? And if you want to drop it right on the playhead, pretty sure you could hit Shift, and it'll drop it on the playhead. Okay? Because Shift does a multitude of things. It can change the rate at which things are, or increase the rate at which things are changed, or it snaps. Shift will turn snapping on. And lock it, if you're moving things visually, it'll lock it in either a vertical or a horizontal direction. So Shift is very handy.
So you hold down shift when you're dragging down, it will snap to the playhead.
Yeah, if you drop it near the playhead, it'll snap it to the playhead
Okay, cool.
when you're dropping it down.
Nice, yeah.
The other way to do that is if I just drop it down here, I can use my left bracket, and left bracket will shift it over to have the beginning start at the playhead. All right. So, all right, we have this PSD file. Which I need to re-import because it came in as one file. So I just deleted that. I'm going to go into my highlight my assets folder in my project panel, and I'm going to hit Command I. And what that'll do is, because my assets folder is highlighted, when I import, it's going to import into that folder, so it'll keep my project organized. So now with my credits PSD, if I hit open, I get this dialog box. It says, what do you want to import this as? If I leave it as footage, the Photoshop file will come in as one object, no matter how many layers are in the Photoshop file.
Let's see, how do I access that again?
If I import it as a composition, then it'll make a new one of these little guys, a new composition with each of the layers separated out for me, but the layer size, the binding box around the layer, will be the size of the full Photoshop file. If I bring it in as a retain layer sizes, then if I've got a little object layer in the Photoshop file, it'll be a little object in After Effects. So I can bring it in as one big object, separate it out with each object being the size of the Photoshop file, or each object its own size. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to leave it composition retain layer sizes. Click OK. There. Now if I double click on this credits composition, I now have two layers. One, see that little binding box around that your name here? And then this little one over documentary. Now, your name here is in the Photoshop file,
Where's the other file?
but it's not a text layer. All right, so these two text layers from the Photoshop file came in as objects. We want to put our name here, and we want to fix the typos on that one. So, nice thing with Photoshop is if you right click on the layer in your timeline panel, you can convert to editable text. And then it's replaced with a text layer. Then I can double click on it and say Scott Halford. Same thing with the other one. If you right click on it, convert to editable text, we can call this, change this to have an E on the animated and a C on documentary. Nice. That's so awesome.
How did you convert it? I missed that.
You just right click on it and then in the list there's a convert to editable text.
Let's see, so right click, convert to it.
Another thing you can do is you can change the color of the text now if you want to. So, all right. Next up, let's do an animated path. Let's go back over to our background movie. Let's rename this actually. Right now it's called background movie composition, but I'm going to rename that. So select it, hit your hard return. That'll select your text, and I'm going to call this lesson 3 comp.
Let's see, what's hard 3?
Hard return.
Hard 3, sorry.
You select it in your project panel, hit return, and that'll highlight the text for you.
But it doesn't say return on the menu, but on the menu.
All right, now let's do text on a path, okay? So what we want to do is create a text layer, and Command T will activate my type tool. I'm going to just make sure I'm not selecting something on accident. I'm just going to go down here, click, and say directed by. All right, hit enter to accept that.
Wait, you just created a text layer, right?
I just created a text layer. It says directed by. Nice and easy. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, and I'm going to make it white. There, now I can see it. Okay, now we need to make a path for this to bend around and move along. All right. So with this layer selected, I actually need to have a mask, which is a path, on the directed by layer, on the text layer. So this is going to look a little weird at first, but it'll be okay. So the key command to activate your pen tool is a little less intuitive. It's G, because P is position, right? So the pen tool is G, just G. If you hit G again, it'll toggle through all the different instances of the pen tool, which is the feather path tool, or the pen tool. Okay, so those are the two. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to go back to my Illustrator days and draw a path. And I want to zigzag from here over to here, around it there, go here, around it there, go here, and then go off there. Sound good?
It's around like that. There is a article.
Are you going to teach me something about the pen tool right now?
So
Oh, okay. Well,
How do you
Okay.
make it round?
that's actually why you're supposed to have some Illustrator or Photoshop experience before this class. That's why I say it's probably more important to have that than it is really to have Premiere. Here's the pen tool real quick. I'm going to delete that mask. So with the pen tool, single click creates a point, okay? Doink. Single click will create another point, but if I hold down shift, it'll make it horizontal. It'll do a horizontal line from that one to the other one. So then just because I know this about the pen tool already, if I do another single click out here, I'm holding my mouse down right now, and I drag this way, then it'll start to bend that around. Okay, so that adds the handle there. Then if I go somewhere pretty much right below that, then it bends it around to the next point. Then if I hold down shift, straight line, then I can curve this one by dragging it. Then I can do, whoops, another click here.
That's
Now, with my mouse down, if I hold spacebar with my thumb, I can change the placement of that, just in case I did it wrong. Let go of spacebar and it locks it.
and worse.
After Effects 2015 has tons of glitches, by the way.
How
They rebuilt it from the ground up
how are you doing that again?
with the pen tool.
Yeah, I mean like how you making curve.
The way you make a path curve with the pen tool is you click, you drag a handle off to the side, then you can connect it by clicking and dragging, and you can curve paths around till you close it. Now with masks, if you want to view your mask and you want to edit it, you can use your selection tool. M will bring up your mask options in your timeline. That'll bring up your mask path. MM will bring up all your mask options, mask path, feather, opacity, and expansion. Those all do different things. Okay, so I've got this path that exists on the directed by text layer. Now what we have to do is I'm going to twirl down this arrow next to directed by. Then underneath there's this text. You can twirl down that one. And then we have some path options. So if we twirl that down, then what we can do is we can say, put the text on mask 1, which is the path we just drew, right? That will lock the directed by text on that path. And by default, it will put the text in the middle of the path. Then you have to go in and see look at everything. There's a stopwatch next to literally everything. So what we want to do is change this alignment, and we can have the first margin go here. So we can actually have it go wrap around. We can keyframe that. I think there's all these different options. So we have our first margin, which will lock it around that way. We have reverse path, which will have that point that I drew last be the first one. Then we can do force alignment. So that changes stuff. That's actually kind of fun. Look at that. Woo! All right. And then under more options, there's lots of stuff. Anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this first point using my selection tool, and I'm going to drag it off far enough off this way that using my first margin, I can actually have it start off the screen. Now let's add a keyframe. turn on the stopwatch. Now we're going to need to go forward. Let's see, that was starting at 1:15, so let's go forward 1 second to about 2:15. And let's advance that forward to have it sort of stop right here. Then let's go forward to 3:15 roughly and advance that forward until we go off the end of the screen. So that's the animating of it.
Let's see.
But what I want to do is I want to add lots of easing to this middle keyframe right here. So easy ease. And what that'll do is have my text come in, slow down, and then go.
Let's see. How do you do that up there? There we go.
How do you draw the mask, you mean?
I already got my mask. Mask gets trying to get to go down instead of thing.
All right, one more thing I'm going to do. Is I'm going to take this keyframe, because see how, watch what it does. It just goes, barely pauses, and then keeps going again. Zoop, zoop. But I want it to stop for longer than that. So I'm going to add another keyframe right about here, and then I'm going to spread them apart. So it's going to get here, stop, woo, keep going.
Oh, yeah, so the timer is just add keyframes.
Now watch what's happening here. It's coming, bouncing forward, going back, and then going forward again. And I want it to continually move. So what I have to do is right-click, select these two keyframes right here, right-click on them, go to keyframe interpolation, and I need it to be linear. So it's going to go directly from one to the next.
So where you've dropped it, that's what
I need to easy ease in on this one, easy ease out on this one, and then that'll cause it to slow down and speed up again. All right, lots of fun stuff.
This doesn't seem to want to do it online.
All right, so there's another thing I need to do, and this is a pretty fun thing. Is if we take this car, I want to have this car come in and drive along this path. I might want to have it lead this directed by text. So what I'm going to do is go to the directed by layer and see that mask. I can actually have that mask be the position of the car. The way you do that is select the directed by layer, the one that has the mask that you drew on it, hit M, and then select mask path. Command C for copy, then go to the car layer, and I'm going to actually, I'm just going to leave this playhead right here. Hit Alt P to turn on the animating for the position, and then I'm going to hit Command V to paste the position of that path onto the position.
V is in Victor?
Victor, yeah,
Okay.
Command V. So check out what this does. The car is going to go driving through along that path. All right, now here's a pretty cool thing. I've got a diamond at the beginning and a diamond at the end, but I've got all these little circles in the middle. What that means is the circle keyframes means it doesn't stop. It takes all the values from this end to this end, and it makes the speed consistent all the way through all those points, so it doesn't slow down through the turns. But what I might want to do
How'd you have the
is
card in the path again?
say what?
How'd you have the card in the path?
You copy the mask path.
Onto.
You hit, so with that selected, you hit Command C, and then you select the position property of the car layer and paste it.
And then Shift Command V?
Just Command V.
Or just Command V?
Yeah, just regular copy and paste. The nice thing about this is if I think the car is going too fast, which it's going pretty fast, I can just take this second keyframe and all those circle keyframes will adjust their timing to make it go slower. Now, one last thing. That car isn't changing direction. Who drives a car like that?
James Bond.
Magician.
James Bond. That's the right answer.
Very talented drifter.
So, right click on the car layer, go to Transform, go to Auto Orient, and then tell it to orient along the path. And it will turn itself in the direction of the path.
It seems like my path came in smaller than the original path. I don't know why. Can I scale it after it's pasted in there?
Yeah, like the path I copied is not the same size, or in the same place as the one that the text is on.
Yeah, you can. What you can do is take the mask, copy the mask, and paste it not onto the position of the car, but onto the car itself. And you could change the size of the path there. That's weird though. It ought to be the same size, unless for some reason your directed by layer isn't scaled to 100%. See what the scale of your text layer is. That would affect the size of your path.
166.
Yeah. So when you pasted a mask that was scaled up to 166, you pasted it onto a layer that was 100,
Oh, I get it.
which made it smaller. Okay, add motion blur. Motion blur will make this look more realistic. There, so turn on the motion blur right there in the timeline, and then activated motion blur for the car layer. Now it's whizzing around the corner.
No, Dad, how are you doing that? Because I have a hard time getting the computer to work with me.
While I was doing that animation, I turned off these other layers so I could see what I was doing easier. Now what we would need to do is just change the timing of the layers so that our animation's happening the way we want it to. So this directed by should probably come down here. And maybe I don't want that to come in till after road trip has gone. So if I select car and directed by, I want this to come whizzing by after road trip is done getting on the screen. And now I want the car to come in a little bit sooner so that it can chase directed by off the screen. That was interesting. It's pretty sloppy. That's what you get when I'm winging it, and the animation presets don't work. We have to make it work on our own. Question.
So, just so, because I come from motion background, like Apple motion, is the bridges just like that, behaviors and stuff in motion?
Yeah. The way a behavior works is it'll, like, if there's an animate in and an animate out, it'll just start that behavior
Right where you put it.
right where you put it, yeah. And it'll adjust itself with the end of the
Right.
clip. After Effects, you actually need to grab the keyframes and move them, and drag them earlier if you want the animation to happen earlier. You can't just change the end of the clip and have it change automatically. So, yeah, that fundamentally,
Yeah.
After Effects and Motion are pretty different programs. They're very different programs.
Yeah.
Question?
How did you get the car to follow the path?
I got the car to follow the path by taking if you hit M, that will bring up mask path. Then you can select mask path, copy that, and then go up to the car layer, hit P, select position, and it'll copy the position of the path onto the position of the car.
Well,
And by default, when you do that,
so how did you do it with the text originally?
with the text originally, you had to twirl down here on the layer, and then you had to twirl down text and go to path options, and then you need to, under path, you need to select mask 1, or the mask that you want the text to be attached to. Because, for example, this is me just talking right now. You don't need to remember this, but this is another thing you can do. If I make a text layer, and I make a nice path for this to go on, twirl that down, text, path options, mask 1. Then I can keyframe the mask. So I can animate that mask and have the text follow it. Okay, we haven't gotten into animating masks yet, but
So we'll be
That
going
is
over
something-
this again later.
animating masks? Oh yeah, animating
Good
masks.
deal.
Seriously, there are a few things where After Effects, the power of After Effects is drawn out. Masks, shapes, the compositing features, and expressions are really where After Effects is powerful. So you spend a lot of time doing stuff like this. So. Yeah, and then you can animate what part of the transform scale text. Sorry. You can animate what part of that line that's on, so you can have it kind of be a roller coaster. Woo! That's crazy. Boink. Anyway, yeah, all of it. Add a keyframe in one place, move it, add another keyframe, and there's lots of power there. There's one other thing I didn't do, and that's using the range selector. So let's do that. Let's just take, this is way out of context. There's nothing here. So let's use my full name again. And if we go down here under text, if we add an animator and animate skew, then we can add some skew to the type. Okay, but if you wanted to add skew to just one letter or one word or one group of words, that's where your range selector comes in. So if I change my start to be before the C and my end to be after the S, then when I change my skew, it only does it to that range. Also, if you want to animate that even farther, you can have everything be skewed and have it not be skewed in that direction, or you can have it unskew in that direction. Okay, so it's all animatable. As I'm moving things right now, just imagine adding keyframes, and that's what it's doing. Okay. So let's do a combination. Let's do a start and end keyframe here, and then have this go from 0, have this go to 100, but then also keyframe the skew to go here to 0. Then it'll start out with Charles skewed, and then it'll try to skew everything while simultaneously unskewing everything. That was weird. Usually the more subtle the animation, the better.
But if you showed like a fan blowing it.
But yeah, there could be a fan blowing it, and you could just like do this back and forth. And that's where I mean expressions. You could write an expression that would take these keyframes and just repeat them back and forth. So then this would happen, but all I would have to do is do it on these one keyframes. We're not going to get into expressions too much in this class because I don't expect you all to be programmers. Because it's a programming language. It's JavaScript.
You can just like Google it, right?
Yeah, a lot of stuff is available. Public forums. There's always somebody that's like, "Hey, I need to know an expression that'll do this," and there's like some genius out there that's like, "Oh, this is what the code looks like. It's pretty easy," and there's like 10 lines of code. I'm just like, yeah, I don't understand any of that, but I'm gonna copy that and paste it into mine. Thanks. So, all right, screen capture ending. That was chapter 3.